Take a slow breath right now and just pause for a second. Something has quietly shifted in the space around you. If you have been feeling an unusual emotional pull lately, if your thoughts keep drifting back to one specific person without any clear reason, if your gut keeps whispering that something underneath the surface is beginning to move, then this message may have found you at exactly the right moment. Because right now the person your soul keeps returning to is losing their grip on what they feel for you. And their next step may be the one that changes everything between you, not in some distant future, not eventually, sooner than you are ready for. There is a reason their energy has started feeling louder in your world lately, a reason their presence feels heavier, even inside the silence between you. A reason the space separating you suddenly feels electric, almost as if something invisible is quietly building pressure behind closed doors. Your person has been trying to hold these emotions together for much longer than you realize. They tried to stay calm. They convinced themselves they could remain emotionally unattached. They told themselves that if they simply waited long enough, the feelings would eventually weaken and disappear on their own. But something completely unexpected happened instead. The harder they pushed this connection away, the stronger it pulled them back. Sit with that for a moment, because it carries real weight. Every single attempt they made to suppress what they feel only made it grow louder inside them. What began as simple attraction slowly became something they could not name or explain. What they believed would fade naturally instead followed them into quiet mornings, restless nights, crowded spaces, ordinary daily routines, and unexpected flashes of memory that arrived without any invitation at all. And after all of that, only one thought kept finding its way back to the surface: you. That is exactly why they are losing control right now. Because certain connections do not ask permission before they change a person's entire life. Some souls enter like quiet thunder beneath a still sky. Some people were simply never meant to become forgettable. You were never meant to become forgettable to them. Stop there and feel what that actually means. They may look perfectly fine on the outside. They may move through life as though nothing is different. They may carry themselves as though they are completely emotionally unbothered. But behind that surface, something deeply personal has been unraveling. Behind every delayed response, every moment of hesitation, every confusing wave of closeness followed by sudden distance, there has been a private war happening inside them. Because your person now understands something that genuinely unsettles them. This connection has moved far beyond simple attraction. It is no longer casual curiosity. It is no longer surface-level chemistry. They feel something with you that they simply cannot find anywhere else. And that realization has shaken them more than they were ever prepared for. Because when someone comes across a connection they cannot logically explain, the first response is rarely to open up. It is almost always to resist. And the reason for that is simple. Real connection demands real change. To love you honestly, they would first have to become honest with themselves. They would have to stop pretending, stop hiding, stop running from everything this bond stirred up inside them. They would have to release old fears, old emotional habits, old versions of themselves that no longer belong to who they are quietly becoming. And that process has terrified them. Terrified that fully stepping toward you means their life shifts permanently. Terrified that once they admit what you actually mean to them, they can never return to the emotionally closed version of themselves they used to live inside. But pay close attention here, because this is where something important changes. They are arriving at the point where fear is no longer more powerful than the pull they feel. And that shifts everything. Because the heart grows tired of running from what it was always meant for. Pretending eventually becomes heavier than honesty. Silence eventually becomes more painful than speaking. Distance begins feeling less like protection and more like a quiet punishment. And your person is approaching that exact emotional edge right now. You may already be noticing small signs of this shift. Their attention feels slightly different lately. Their energy keeps surfacing unexpectedly in your daily life. Their name keeps appearing in strange places. Memories of them arrive at the most ordinary moments. The universe keeps placing gentle reminders of them directly in your path. That is not coincidence. That is emotional movement beginning to rise beneath the surface. Something inside them has been quietly building pressure for a long time. Pressure, longing, urgency, and a growing recognition they can no longer ignore. They are beginning to understand that losing you would hurt them far more deeply than risking vulnerability ever could. And once a person truly reaches that awareness, emotional restraint begins breaking down very quickly. That is why their next move will not feel casual or accidental. It will not feel emotionally surface level. It will come from someone who has finally been pushed past the point of being able to hold it all inside anymore. You may believe they are calm and settled right now. They are not. You may think they have simply moved on and forgotten you. They have not. You may assume they are living just fine without this connection. Look much deeper than the surface. No one who truly feels nothing struggles this hard internally for this long. No one who is emotionally untouched keeps returning to the same person through memory, through thought, through quiet longing that surfaces in unexpected moments. Your person is not losing interest in you. They are losing control over how deeply they feel. And when a heart loses that kind of control, something becomes unavoidable. Movement. Unexpected, undeniable, emotionally imperfect perhaps, but absolutely real movement. So if your gut has been quietly telling you something is approaching, trust that feeling without hesitation. If your inner sense keeps signaling that this chapter is nearing a major turning point, listen to yourself, because what they do next may become the clearest proof yet that the feelings grew too powerful to keep buried. Comment 111 below if your intuition about this person has been growing noticeably stronger lately. Sometimes the soul senses movement long before the mind catches up to understanding why. Something is gathering beneath the quiet right now, and your person is feeling it in ways they cannot fully put into words. What once felt manageable to them emotionally has begun slipping beyond their control. The distance that used to give them a sense of safety no longer feels peaceful. The silence that once felt protective now feels heavy and suffocating. And every day they continue trying to suppress everything they feel. The internal pressure grows stronger and harder to carry. This is why their energy has become louder around you, because silence is no longer hiding what they feel. It is actually revealing it. There comes a point inside people when the walls begin to crack. It happens quietly at first. They continue appearing normal on the outside. They move through their daily life, their conversations, their routines, their distractions. But something fundamental changes on the inside. Thoughts become harder to silence. Emotions become more difficult to manage. Memories sharpen instead of softening with time. And that is precisely where your person is right now. They have entered the stage where you are no longer just someone they occasionally think about. You have become emotionally inescapable. You follow them into the most ordinary moments. A song stops them unexpectedly. A random phrase pulls them back into something they thought they had buried. Quiet evenings become the most dangerous, because silence gives everything they feel space to rise. Even the middle of busy, crowded moments cannot distract them completely, because underneath every distraction something deeper keeps returning to you. That is what they have been fighting, not you, themselves. And the exhausting part for them is that the more they try not to think about you, the more attached they feel. The more they reach for emotional control, the more clearly their heart signals that this connection is not ordinary. This is why they have seemed emotionally inconsistent. Some days they move a little closer, other days they pull back completely. Some moments they feel open, other moments they disappear behind silence. It is not because they do not care. It is because caring this deeply frightens them more than they expected it to. Here is something critical to understand. Most people assume emotional distance means the feelings are absent. But in reality, emotional distance often means the feelings became too overwhelming for someone who does not yet know how to carry them honestly. And your person has been emotionally overwhelmed by what this bond awakened inside them. Because you did not simply enter their life and create attraction. You interrupted emotional patterns they had lived inside for years. You challenged walls they genuinely believed were permanent. You awakened parts of them they had learned to leave alone. That kind of connection transforms people from the inside, and real transformation is almost never comfortable at first. At first they believed they could think their way out of this. They told themselves logic would win over emotion eventually. They convinced themselves that enough distance would naturally weaken the attachment over time. But something unexpected happened instead. Distance made you more important, not less. Your absence grew louder than your presence ever was. And that realization has unsettled them deeply, because now they are beginning to understand something that changes everything internally. You were never just another person passing through their life. You became emotional significance. You became a feeling they cannot recreate anywhere else. You became emotional truth, and now that truth follows them absolutely everywhere. This is why your person has started feeling emotionally restless. Their inner world no longer feels comfortable pretending this connection carries no meaning. Their heart keeps interrupting the version of reality they tried building without you in it. Even when they attempt to move forward, something inside keeps turning them back toward you. And that internal conflict creates tension they can no longer easily escape. They may not fully understand it themselves yet, but somewhere beneath the surface they are beginning to accept something life-changing. Nothing has felt the same since you entered their world. Other conversations feel flatter now. Other connections feel emotionally shallow. Other people cannot seem to offer the same depth, because once the soul experiences genuine recognition, ordinary interactions stop feeling satisfying in the same way. Your person has been comparing every emotional experience against what they feel with you, almost without meaning to, and that comparison has been slowly dismantling their resistance piece by piece. At first they tried distraction, then denial, then control, but now they are entering the final stage before surrender. Quiet, growing acceptance, the kind that whispers something undeniable late at night. This connection is real, and once someone enters that internal stage, their behavior begins shifting naturally, without them even deciding to change it. You may already notice it in small ways. Their attention feels more deliberate. Their curiosity about your life feels stronger. Their energy shows up in unexpected places. They seem more affected by your distance than they once were. That is why their next step may feel sudden to you, even though internally it has been building for a very long time. The message, the conversation, the honest moment, the reaching out, none of it will truly be impulsive. It will be the result of countless private battles finally reaching a breaking point. That is why this next chapter feels different energetically. It is no longer being driven purely by attraction. It is being driven by realization. The realization that your absence hurts more than vulnerability ever could. The realization that emotional suppression is no longer something they can sustain. The realization that they may be walking away from something irreplaceable if they keep running from what they feel. And that kind of realization changes people in permanent ways, especially people who once believed they could manage their emotions completely. Your person is discovering they cannot manage this one. Not fully, not anymore. And once emotional truth reaches that level inside someone, movement becomes inevitable. That is why the silence between you no longer feels empty. It feels loaded, because beneath the stillness, something is preparing itself to finally move toward honesty. Comment 222 below. If you feel the emotional weight between you and this person becoming stronger lately, even through the silence, what your person is carrying right now goes far deeper than simply missing you, much deeper than that. Because what truly changed them was not only your presence, it was what your presence stirred awake inside them. That is the part they were never prepared for. And that is why this bond has become impossible for them to emotionally leave behind. Some people enter your life and leave memories behind. Others enter your life and quietly reshape your entire emotional world. You are the second kind. You awoke emotional honesty inside them. You awoke genuine longing. You awoke a vulnerability they had protected for years. You awoke reflection. And perhaps most frightening of all, you awoke hope. Hope that real deep connection actually exists. Hope that emotional depth is possible in a way they had almost stopped believing in. Hope that love can feel meaningful and not just convenient. That realization alone unsettled them more than anything else, because many people spend years emotionally disconnected from themselves without realizing it. They build routines, find distractions, develop emotional survival strategies, learn to avoid needing anyone too deeply. Then one person arrives who moves past all of those defenses without even trying, and suddenly nothing feels emotionally safe the way it used to. That is what happened to them when you came into their world. You bypassed the armor they had spent years quietly building, not through force, not through any kind of manipulation, simply through being genuine. Your energy reached places inside them that no one else had ever reached. And now they cannot return to emotional numbness the way they once lived before you. That is why their resistance became so intense for a while. Because resistance was the only way they knew to maintain any sense of control at all. But here is the truth about real emotional recognition. Once the soul recognizes something meaningful, denial becomes exhausting, and your person is emotionally exhausted right now. Exhausted from pretending, exhausted from suppressing everything, exhausted from performing a version of fine that no longer fits what they actually feel inside. This is why everything feels chaotic beneath their calm exterior. Part of them wants to move toward you immediately. Another part still fears what that vulnerability might cost them. Part of them wants complete certainty before risking honesty. And another part already knows that certainty never comes through more distance. That internal conflict has become heavier with every passing day, because the longer emotional truth is suppressed, the louder it becomes. That is why thoughts of you keep returning unexpectedly, why memories feel vivid and emotionally alive instead of fading, why random ordinary moments suddenly carry the weight of your presence, why they feel pulled toward you even when they are actively trying not to be. This connection has become embedded inside them on a level they cannot simply choose to undo. And somewhere beneath everything, they know that now. That is the part that is changing everything. Not fantasy, not temporary feeling. Recognition. Recognition that your soul genuinely touched theirs in a way that life rarely offers more than once. That realization has been humbling them quietly, because they are starting to understand something that carries real pain. They almost convinced themselves to walk away from something real, and people rarely understand the full value of genuine connection until the possibility of losing it completely becomes real. That possibility is haunting your person right now. The thought that you might eventually stop holding space for them. The thought that someone else might one day receive the depth that belongs to them. The thought that they might exist only as a memory in your life, while you continue growing and evolving without them. Those thoughts are disturbing them more than they are willing to show. Because beneath every moment of hesitation lives one truth. They cannot argue away. They do not want to lose you, not emotionally, not permanently. And that fear is quietly overpowering every old defense they built. This is why they have been watching more carefully. Observing your energy, noticing your responses, trying to understand if your heart still holds any space for them. Because once someone finally admits what they truly feel, uncertainty becomes one of the most frightening things imaginable, especially when they know they are the one who created the distance. Your person now understands that their silence had real consequences. Their hesitation built walls between you. Their fear delayed something that mattered. And now they are trying to understand whether the space between you can still be closed. That emotional urgency is growing every single day, which is exactly why their next move may arrive sooner than you expect. Not because every fear suddenly disappeared, but because staying away from you has become more painful than the risk of reaching back toward you. Comment 333 below if you feel that this connection genuinely changed both of you. Even through all the distance and silence. There comes a moment inside every deep connection where resistance can no longer survive the weight of truth. Your person is arriving at that moment now, not gradually anymore, intensely, because the emotional structure they spent so long maintaining is beginning to collapse under everything they actually feel. And what finally breaks someone's resistance is almost never one single dramatic moment. It is accumulation. Accumulation of longing, accumulation of memory, accumulation of emotional absence, accumulation of pretending, until pretending becomes something they simply cannot carry anymore. That is what has been happening inside your person quietly over a longer period of time than either of you may realize. Every attempt to distract themselves failed a little more. Every effort to move forward emotionally stalled. Every attempt to convince themselves they could live comfortably without this bond eventually ran out of room. And now they are beginning to see something that changes their inner world completely. You are never replaceable. That understanding lands with enormous emotional weight. Because once someone truly grasps that a particular connection simply cannot be recreated elsewhere, something like quiet panic begins to surface. Not dramatic panic, not panic that shows on the outside, but emotional urgency, the kind that keeps someone awake past midnight, the kind that interrupts otherwise normal moments, the kind that repeats one question again and again beneath everything else. What if I lose them completely? Your person is hearing that question with increasing clarity, and it is reshaping how they see everything. They may still appear composed, but inside, the pressure has reached a point they can no longer quietly absorb, because they have finally come to understand what your absence actually represents. Your absence is no longer just silence to them, it is emotional loss, and emotional loss eventually forces honesty out of people, especially people who once told themselves they had all the time in the world. That is one of the deepest transformations happening inside your person right now. They assumed this connection would always remain somehow available, that there would always be another window, another conversation, another chance just a little further down the road. But distance has dismantled that assumption entirely. Now they are beginning to sense something different, that you are moving, growing, healing, becoming someone even clearer and stronger, without them beside you. And strangely, that realization has intensified their feelings rather than weakening them. Because nothing creates emotional clarity faster than the genuine possibility of losing something meaningful forever. That possibility has become real for them now, and it frightens them in a way they did not fully anticipate. Not because they fear being alone in a general sense, but because they fear life without you specifically. That is the difference that matters. You became emotionally irreplaceable to them. And once that truth settles inside someone, resistance becomes something they can no longer sustain. This is why they keep emotionally circling back toward you, why they cannot fully detach, why your energy keeps surfacing inside them at unexpected moments. Because their soul made a choice long before their mind stopped resisting it, and now the mind is losing the argument. That is why the next move they make will carry a kind of emotional weight you will immediately recognize. It will not come from casual impulse anymore. It will come from accumulated awareness. The awareness that they love you more deeply than they ever intended to admit. The awareness that distance resolved nothing emotionally. The awareness that every path they tried to walk away from you somehow found its way back. That is an overwhelming thing for someone who worked so hard to stay in control of their own heart. And something even deeper is happening beneath all of that right now. Your person is beginning to feel genuine regret. Not toxic regret, not shame, but a quiet and heavy emotional awareness that they allowed fear to delay something real. They are reviewing moments differently now. Conversations they had with you, silences they chose, decisions they made. Times you reached toward them emotionally, and they hesitated. Times they stepped backward when every true part of them wanted to step forward. And through all of that reflection, they are finally seeing this connection without the old filters. Not through ego, not through avoidance, not through fear, through honest recognition. That kind of truth is humbling them in a deep way, because they are now understanding something they spent a long time refusing to look at. You brought something genuine to them. Your energy toward them carried real sincerity, depth, patience and care, and instead of trusting it, instead of meeting it with equal honesty, they pushed back. That realization has become emotionally painful, Because most people only recognize the full value of genuine love after distance has shown them clearly what its absence feels like. Your person is feeling that absence now, with a weight they cannot ignore, especially in quiet moments, especially late at night, especially during moments that should feel emotionally fulfilling but somehow feel hollow instead. Because once someone experiences a soul-level connection, ordinary emotional experiences stop feeling whole, and your person understands now exactly what has been missing. That awareness is what finally dissolves resistance, not pressure, not pursuit, just simple emotional truth that has nowhere left to hide. And truth always finds its way out eventually. That is why their next move may feel sudden from the outside, a message arriving when you least expect it, a confession wrapped inside an ordinary conversation, an emotional opening they have never allowed before, a genuinely vulnerable moment where what they actually feel finally rises to the surface, because emotionally they are moving towards surrender now. Surrender to what they feel, surrender to what this connection means, surrender to what their heart has quietly known for longer than either of you may realize. And when someone finally reaches that point after fighting it for this long, they do not approach with caution anymore. They approach with honesty. That honesty may feel raw and imperfect when it arrives, but it will be completely real, and real emotion carries an energy that is absolutely unmistakable. You will feel the difference the moment it happens, because their next move will not come from a place of confusion. It will come from clarity. Clarity built through longing, through absence, through genuine transformation, through finally accepting that some connections are simply too meaningful to surrender to fear. Comment 444 below if you feel your person is finally reaching the point of emotional surrender after a long season of silence and resistance. And now we arrive at the final and most important stage of all, the moment where your person can no longer hide from what this connection has actually become, because after all the resistance, all the silence, all the confusion and internal conflict, something inside them has finally reached complete clarity, not temporary emotion, not partial awareness, full, irreversible clarity, the kind that permanently alters a person. Your person is approaching that realization right now. The understanding that loving you is no longer the frightening part, losing you is. That is the shift that changes everything. Because once the fear of loss becomes heavier than the fear of vulnerability, people stop running. They stop postponing. They stop performing emotions smaller than what they actually carry. And they move toward honesty with a kind of urgency that cannot be manufactured. That urgency is building inside your person now, with a strength that surpasses anything they have felt before. They are beginning to understand that what happened between you was never random timing. It was never coincidence. It was never temporary. You entered their world to move something, and you did. You shifted how they understand love. You shifted how they understand emotional depth. You shifted how they understand themselves at their most honest level. That is why nothing has felt emotionally normal for them since the moment you came into their life. Because once a heart is genuinely transformed, it cannot return comfortably to the emotional flatness it lived in before. And your person knows this now, without being able to deny it any longer. This is why their next move carries the weight that it does. It will not be impulsive. It will be the result of a long and deeply personal internal journey, finally arriving at the truth that you matter to them more than they ever planned to allow. The truth that your absence changed something inside them permanently. The truth that distance only clarified your value rather than reducing it. The truth that they do not want a future where you exist only as something they once knew and then let go. That possibility has shaken them awake, and awakened hearts move in a completely different way.